Muy bien. Muy buenas noticias. Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Coffee Sessions. My name is Vicente Partida. I'm the Communications Officer for the International Coffee Organization. Welcome to the ICO if you've never been here. Welcome to the ICO if you have been here before. So we've got two great speakers today, Nadine Rasch from Third Wave Coffee Source and Conrad Britz from Falcon Coffees. And Ben and Tim will introduce them briefly. I just wanted to, if you're not familiar with the layout of this room, this is the first time you've been here, just to let you know, most of you should have microphones in front of you. When we get to the Q&A session and you want to ask a question, you can press the round button in front of you. Those of you who don't have microphones, please, there's plenty of room. Please join us up here. And you just press the button. This little thing lights up, and to stop talking, you do this. Yeah. So now
we could do a test hello if you like.
Exactly.
Break the ice. Hello. Thank you.
All right. We, on behalf of our executive director, Mr. Roverio Oliveira Silva, welcome to the ICO. We hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. A fantastic turnout. As some of you will know and some are about to know, Tim and I have been working for a while now as the SE UK education coordinators, and it's in that role that we've put this together. I should say just a quick running order. Nadine will be on first, talking to you about Guatemalan coffee especially, but I've seen her talk and some stuff to do with agronomy and supply chain. At 7:15, we're expecting a break, so you'll all be able to have a glass of water, make phone calls and stuff at that time. 7:30, Conrad will be on, and I think he has some quite radical and fascinating ideas about also supply chain, but more the economic side. Is that fair? Yep. And then at 8:15, there will be a Q&A. So you'll have a good session to ask both presenters any questions that you've come up with during the talks. And please do ask anything. It's a very informal and open session, this. Nothing coffee related is inappropriate in this context. And at 8:45-ish, we should finish up. And we're all going to head around the corner to Caffeine, where Peter has very kindly laid on delicious looking food, I have to say, and Tim has very kindly laid on beer.
The important bit, yeah.
Tim, do you just mention the Twitter tag and anything else?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
He's a Twitter phobe. But we
won't even touch it.
We have a Twitter hashtag, TheCoffeeSessions. I think Vicente sent that up.
Yep.
Set it up. So I don't know how to explain how that works, but for you Twitter.
Are you as bad as me?
Yeah, I don't know why he handed it to me. But anyway, for those who know Twitter, use that, please, because we like generating the awareness on the social media. This only happens because people have talked about it. And for those who've been to the other sessions, they've been really great. We've had such a good time, and we've learned a lot. That's the best part of it, the learning that's happened. So hopefully tonight will be very informative, and it will lead to the next session. And we're open to ideas. So if you have suggestions of what you'd like to see in these events, please tell us, because they happen for you and with you. So we're here for you. Happy?
Good stuff. Yeah.
So what's the hashtag?
Hashtag is TheCoffeeSessions.
Is that the bottom of that slide over there?
My new glasses, I can see everything now. It's awesome. Cool.
Great, thank you very much. Nadine.
Nadine, you're up.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. Hi, and thank you all for coming. And I have to say, this is the biggest room that I've ever spoken to, so bear with me if I all of a sudden start speaking in Spanish or really, really quickly, because speaking slow is not in our nature. So for those who don't know me, my name is Nadine Rasch, and I'm the founder of Third Wave Coffee Source. And rather than me giving you a presentation, I want this to be a conversation between you, the consumers, in the various capacities, and me, a coffee producer, representing my fellow countrymen from Guatemala. And I know what you're thinking. She's not a coffee producer. Whoop. She doesn't fit the stereotypes. She's not 55, male, with a family and approximately 5 children, living in a rural coffee producing region. But perhaps this picture will make you change your minds. We come in all shapes and sizes. This is me and my sister at the age of 7 picking coffee on our farm, on our school holidays, of course. Let me begin by telling you a story that has inspired me and motivated me. This is Jose. He's also not the typical coffee producer, seeing that he's only 23, not married, and does not have a family. Until a few years ago, he was working in various jobs while he studied. He never wanted to work in his family's coffee farm, as he had seen the hard work, the little reward, and the tremendous volatility in the coffee prices his grandparents got for the so carefully cultivated coffee. With an absent father, it was only until his family desperately needed him that he had no choice but to offer a hand. But Jose was frustrated. With his parents and his grandparents getting older, and the younger generation moving into big cities to pursue what is perceived as a more successful career, not to mention the high levels of immigration north. Don't tell anyone I told you. I cannot help but wonder who is going to take care of the farms where our so beloved Huehuetenango coffee grows. Since working with Jose, we have been able to stabilize the prices he gets for his coffee, and not to mention double them in less than 2 years. It was then that maybe he saw in me what I saw in him, a passion and sense of responsibility for our families and for our country. It was when we discovered this wonderful coffee that all the possibilities of the specialty coffee market opened up for Jose, and he decided to take on fully his family farm. We have made tremendous improvements, from correct pruning to soil treatment, trainings for the pickers, betterments to his wet mill, and even processing experiments with wonderful results. You will be tasting some of this coffee later today in our break. Like him, I work with many other producers from the various regions of Guatemala. Juan Jose from Acatenango, his farm is the last one up the volcano, or the first one, however what way you want to see it, and the highest point where he produces coffee is 2,000 meters. Rolando, he's the talk of the town. Everyone knows him and he thinks he knows everything. The Perez family, they're so advanced, they even have a cupping lab in their farm. This is Juan Diego, one of the most technically advanced coffee producers I know. He's been top 3 at Cup of Excellence ever since Cup of Excellence started. And next to him is my dad. And there's my dad again dancing in the patios of our farm. This farm has been in our family for over 4 generations. Rolando again showing off his healthy plants. Guillermo, very proud to have been selected for Cup of Excellence for the first time after submitting his coffee for over 5 years. And this is Beto, turning his coffee on the patios. And I think you get the picture. These are all producers of wonderful coffees. And even though they have very different immediate needs, some of them might need financing, others need technical assistance, and others need access to international markets, in the end, they all have the same desires of a higher, more stable price for their coffee, long-term committed relationships with buyers, and pride and honor for the hard work that they do. None of these needs are met in the traditional supply chain. Historically, we have had a long and complicated supply chains, and it usually takes 5 hands for the coffee to reach the exporter. They have been both long in distance and in time, and very complex in the nature and the risks that they have. There's the risks within growing and processing, transporting and the security, ownership and financial risk, dry milling, and yields. I could spend countless hours talking about yields from cherry coffee to parchment, and from parchment to the green coffee that is exported as a specialty product. And this is a small ratio that can make or break you in 1 year. This is why at Third Wave we specialized in making these supply chains easier to navigate and safer both for roasters and for producers. Being a player at every step of the game before the coffee reaches roasters has been the key to our success. We're able to provide agricultural education and guidelines to our producers so that the plant, the indispensable beginning of the coffee, is a success. Monitoring the harvest to ensure good picking practices, as well as being present during the wet milling to ensure quality. We have various warehouses around Guatemala to make it easier for producers to deliver the coffee safely. Prepayment and payment on delivery terms are offered to our trusted producers. The coffee is then milled in-house at our dry mill so that we have full control over the end result. Exporting, logistics, importing are all done coherently to save time and money. But perhaps the most important part of it all, of being fully integrated, is that there is a constant quality control every step of the way. With this integration, we're able to modify the supply chain. Not being able to do anything about where coffee grows, because it's not like we're going to be growing coffee in Kent. We have focused on making the timeline shorter, more efficient, and one in which quality is guaranteed. The traditional trading model also does not benefit the producers. The idea of buying low and selling high in huge quantities leaves out the most important player, the producer. This is why we focused on bringing back the value and recognition where it is deserved. By saying this, I'm not discrediting every step necessary to get the coffee from the tree to the cup, but suggesting that these steps should be as efficient and as cost-effective as possible so that we can get value down to where it's deserved. So we work together and we eat together. We've been working together with many producers in order to ensure prosperity for all the key players, rewarding quality and making the supply chain as efficient and as transparent as possible. In order for this to work properly, we provide technical and financial support. We hold various regional competitions during the harvest to get producers motivated, and this has become a space where they meet and talk about the various issues and the common solutions that they face. Something I had never expected, but has naturally happened, and I'm impressed by their willingness to help each other. We have a cupping lab in Guatemala City, where all the coffees are cupped various times by our cuppers before they're selected. We provide immediate and good feedback to all the producers to make sure that they can always improve their quality. Transparency is best showcased when roasters come to Guatemala and see the work that we do firsthand. But of course, this is not always possible, so I'm sometimes trying to bring what we do to you. And these are various pictures of the different origin trips we've had. And I want to tell you now a little bit more about Guatemala and the world of coffee. We're a small little country in Central America, 8 different coffee regions. And we're not very big on the production scale. Being the 10th largest makes us a small in terms of production. However, what's more interesting to me is this. Over the last 20 years, Guatemala has readily responded to the demands of quality. From this graph, you see how we've gone from producing lower quality coffee in the blue and the orange to producing more of the green, which is a strictly hard bean, or a very, which usually is 84 plus points on the SCA score. During the last few years, this has not come easy, and it has been particularly difficult due to the coffee leaf rust. This is a very personal story to me. This is our farm, and last year, it devastated our farm. From having a well-managed, healthy farm, we lost about 60% of our production due to this horrible fungus that attacks the leaves, and the tree immediately drops the leaves, which doesn't allow it to continue its photosynthesis, and then there's no energy to produce or ripen cherries. And what has been our response and Guatemala's response? We have done what we do best, which is cope. So we have nurseries with different varieties that are resistant to rust. Last year, we planted 500,000 trees of Icatu and Castillo varietals. And this year, we've got Sarchimores, Caltimores, Lempiras, and the very interesting Anacafe 14 that was recently discovered. These are pictures of our 2-year trees. They were replanted out into the fields last year. And this is the results that we've been getting. This is a leaf of a Bourbon tree, completely devastated by rust. It's probably going to kill the tree very soon. And the second one is a leaf of an Icatu. And you can see the leaf rust trying to attack, but it's resisting. This is the new variety that has been found at Anacafe in Guatemala. It's a mutation between a Pacamara and a Catimor, and it was discovered in 1984 and has been worked on for 30 years by the Anacafe Research Department. This variety is now available and it's being widely planted in Guatemala. This is the response in 2013 when the leaf rust was at its worst. You can see the tree on the right side being very healthy and full. And on the other side, you see a Catuai struggling. No ripe cherries. It's probably gonna die soon. This coffee tree is high yielding, so farmers are very happy to plant it. But more importantly, and what I hope you are all asking yourselves, is what is the cup profile? What is it actually going to taste like? Are we going to replace this with Bourbon? What's going to happen to other varieties we love? I cannot answer that fully, but the tests and the cuppings that have been done have proven to be quite successful. This coffee has been cupped by all the National Jury of Cup of Excellence, and this is the combined score that we have received. Of course, this is one sample of one farm. It'll change depending on the soil, on the altitude, on the climate, how it's grown, how it's processed. So it's a learning curve for everyone, but it's promising so far. You can all stop me if you have any questions at any time as well. Sorry. So you're all wondering what makes Guatemalan coffee so special. There's a few key factors. We've got good climate conditions, the varietals, which might be changing in the next few years. And then we have really good agronomic techniques. The influence of altitude is undeniable. 80% of our coffee is grown from 1,300 meters to 2,000 meters. So in general, it's a very high, it's a country with a really high altitude. Then you have microclimates. We have more than 300 individual microclimates identified, which give very different cup profiles for each region. This is the breakdown of the varieties available in Guatemala. You see that about 80% is Bourbon, Catuai, and Caturra. And I'm assuming this will slowly change as the lower altitude farms start to change their varietals into being resistant varietals. 98% of our coffee is shade grown, which doesn't only create a good environment for birds and animals, it's also really good for the soils, as any organic material that falls goes back into the soil, replenishing it year after year. We have a very good culture of pickers. It's all hand selective picking. And we've come a long way in knowing that the quality comes from the way coffee is picked. The second most important bit is post-harvest and processing, making sure that at the coffee reception we only receive ripe cherries. Depulpers and classification is done correctly. Fermentation is done at its optimal. Then we have washing, drying, and the final selection process. So I hope you go away from this presentation learning and knowing that producers is not a one-size-fits-all. We all have different immediate needs, but in the long term, we all have the same goals. Long and complex supply chains are no longer necessary, especially if you choose a correct trading partner. Trading models can be beneficial for everyone, especially if credit is given where it's deserved. And developing countries, they're quick at changing and adapting to market demands. And I want to conclude with a final thought. With the economic growth and improvements in the living standards in developing countries, opportunity cost for the next generation of specialty coffee producers has never been higher. It is people like Jose and I that are going to be the coffee that you all are going to be drinking in the next decades to come. And this is why I encourage this community to work together in creating a model that is open, engaging, and rewarding for everyone involved. Thank you.
Okay, we have a bit of time, so I thought we might do a quick Q&A now with Nadine. She's willing to do it, thankfully. So does anyone have any questions arising from that they'd like to ask? Can you use them?
Shall I start?
Yeah.
What do you consider the optimal size of a farm? From what you indicated, I get the impression that the Finca Lato is about 160 manzanas, about 170 manzanas. What is the optimal size for a farm?
I mean, it depends on many things.
Obviously.
Versus in situations like we had with Rust, when you get to a crisis, you have many other issues like financial issues and everything. So I think it really is it's a personal question. I can't really answer that. What's the optimal? In what sense?
Well, the reason I ask that is because, of course, there's a large number of smaller properties which are financially struggling exactly because of things like that. And the question really is, at what size does it become manageable to take care of crises like that?
Well, as I said, for example, in our farm, we will not recover the invested capital in the next 8 to 10 years is what I calculated. Mm-hmm. So if a person has a farm, but they also have other means of income, and they can do that, and they see a future in that, then that's the optimal size for that person. But I cannot say that there's an optimal size for everyone, or there's an optimal size of a farm. Yes, please.
Hi, Nadine.
Hi.
I wanted to ask if, do you also need to treat the soil of all that area that has been afflicted by the leaf rust? So those trees have to be taken out, and then do you actually do something for the soil before you can replant, or does that have to rest for a while as well?
So once the tree dies, you have to cut it from the bottom, and then you take it out. Yeah, you leave the area to rest. You usually leave all the leaves around so that it's organically re-put into the soil. Mm-hmm. There's no need to sort of re-nurture the soil itself. But it will usually be replanted within the next year, because the trees are in a nursery for about 9 months. And then you start planting just before the rainy season. Yeah.
Hi. You touched kind of briefly on the cup quality of the Anacafe 14 variety, but if farms like yours are experiencing 60% loss, is cup quality an issue at all?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because, for example, in our farm is, I wish we could, you know, put our farm up in the highest peak of a mountain. But you have your cards that are your dealt, and that's what you have. And unfortunately, some producers will never have the highest quality. But what you're looking for is a combination of efficiency of yields and quality. So it really depends, again, on a personal, on a sort of farm by farm basis, to see if your farm is at a certain altitude, it has certain soils. Is it worth it to risk your crop being destroyed by quality because you're getting paid so much more for the special Bourbon or the special Geisha? Or do you actually prefer a more stable, less quality coffee? Price.
Yeah. What's the answer to that?
Well,
what would you advise? What would you advise? You know, if a producer came to you with that kind of question at 1,200 meters, or
I'd advise to get rid of it and do resistant. But of course, it doesn't. If you have resistant varieties, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have other diseases.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things out there, so you do have to be careful, and it's sort of a risk and reward analysis that you have to do per farm basis. And if, you can see our farm, that's what we went for, because we just saw that there is no way we were ever going to be able to have the varieties that we currently have, which are Bourbon and Caturas, and ever again. But there was a very interesting variety that we found in our farm, and you would see, as far as you could see, everything was dead, and there'd be a few trees alive, and you'd be like, "What? I'm sure this is a Bourbon and Catura plot." So we went to them, and they were a combination. They were a natural mutation that happened in the farm of a Bourbon and a Catura, and they were resistant naturally. Everything dead, and then these huge trees, like really healthy. So we got seeds from those, and we're also planting them. So it's going to be a combination, like that will be really good quality, but then we'll see how long it lasts, because rust also changes. It's a fungus that is going to continue evolving.
Yeah.
And then and if it's much higher altitude farm where, you know, the quality is outstanding, then I would suggest you keep sort of fighting, because you can use fungicide. We do suggest that to some of our producers. Not more than 4 applications a year, because then it becomes really expensive.
Firstly, I want to say that I thought the talk was brilliant, and it was really insightful to have that.
Thank you.
My question was more related to, more specifically, what you said about we eat together and we work together. And that was particularly interesting to me, because it seemed almost an alternative to a co-op in terms of knowledge exchange. So I'm really curious about that, because whenever I've been to Origin, they're always desperate for Western insights and knowledge about what's trending. For example, you go there and all of a sudden everyone decides to grow geisha, which obviously sometimes isn't the best solution. So I was just more curious to hear more information about that.
Of course, I mean, even my dad came to me. He said, "We should plant geisha," and I was like, "No, it's not gonna be a good solution for our farm, which is not at the altitude that you need to make a really good geisha, to produce a really good geisha." So the reason I've thought a lot about building a cooperative, but it seems to me that the producers that I work with, they like their independence and they don't want to belong to anything, because usually, you know, there's a lot of trust issues with cooperatives in that part, particularly in that region. So they're like, "No, we don't care about cooperatives. We don't want to do that." But we do like getting together and exchanging information and sitting together at a table and, you know, talking. In fact, we had a really interesting one where roasters were on one side and then producers were on the other side, and I was the only woman there, and I had to translate from English to Spanish, and I was like, oh. So we really enjoy that. We really enjoy that exchange, and as you say, roasters are really, producers are really interested to know what's trending and what's happening. I was really surprised that the only thing they were asking me for was a Chemex. And I was like, okay, what are you, sure, I'll get you a Chemex, but really? That's what you're asking me for? So, no, I really enjoy that information sharing that we do. And just one more thing, I think it's really interesting the position where I'm in, because I kind of understand what you guys do, and I kind of understand what they do, and I can kind of combine them. So it's a very fortunate position to be in.
Okay. Hi. It's very interesting to be here. I'm from Costa Rica. I'm actually a coffee producer as well. So it's like kind of very exciting for me to hear that there's someone like me here and doing amazing things. Like, I really don't know too much about what you're doing, but it seems like your story is kind of similar to mine. So I got very interesting when you said like the producer asking you for Chemex, and that's something like I see Costa Rica as well. Like, like with nowadays with trends and everything, they get very interesting to see the other side of the industry, because it's like a completely new world for all the farmers, but there's still like a lot of, a long way to go to get what we have. What they have or people have on the other side, like countries like here, for example. So what do you think we as producers can do to like actually take this to the other side? Because I think it's also important. Like, there is a lot of people going to origin, micro roasters, green buyers, but you don't see a lot of producers come to the other side and learn about what is happening here, this new world. For me, it's super interesting, and I think it's something that they should know, because how is that possible that we don't drink good coffee there? Like, everything, if the best coffee is going, and yeah, I don't know, maybe you have an idea, because I have many, but yeah, I would like to hear your,
So I think I've seen both sort of sides of that. I've seen producers that come into my office and I offer them their coffee roasted. I'm like so excited to show them, like, this is what you produced, like, try it. And they're like, yeah, but I want milk and sugar. And I'm like, no, try it like this. No, where can I smoke? And I'm like, okay, I give up. And every time he comes, I'm like, are you gonna try it now? And he's like, no. Yeah. So I see that side, but then, for example, Jose, he came to me and he was like, can I borrow money? And I was like, sure. What are you gonna do? He bought a roaster. He has a roaster. He has a coffee shop in San Antonio, Huista, and Huehuetenango. That's like, and he wants a Chemex for there, and like he's so he's really pushing it on that side, and I think it has to do a lot with generation changes and technology. He's on WhatsApp. He now has a website or a Facebook page for the farm, and it's just amazing. And he's constantly asking me for advice, and if I could put some words on his pictures. And so I see both sides of that. I think what is gonna help sort of the country become more interested in what they're consuming might come from the national organizations and from competitions, like barista competitions, the latte art competitions, and all of those. I think they're really pushing forward that side of sort of the consuming and the roasting side of it back into producing countries. I don't know if that makes sense.
No question?
Nadine, thank you very much for that presentation. In terms of the smallholder farmers in Guatemala, in your opinion, what would you say would be the biggest challenge or problem they face?
Financing.
Yeah.
it is extremely expensive during the harvest season. And I sort of struggled at the beginning with this because sort of as a young person trying to buy coffee from them, they'd be like, oh, can you give us an advance? And now I've have a network of producers, and I've have trusted producers that I'm happy to do that with. Somehow it works in Guatemala. Somehow things work and people know about each other and everyone knows everyone's business and gossip. So if you do something, if you borrow money and you don't pay it back, you'll know. So people that cannot pay it back tend to not ask for it. And then if someone really needs it, we're happy to do a lot of prepayments for coffees that we have worked with before and we know what the quality is going to be like. I just had one more question.
Good evening, Nadine. Hi. I have actually a very simple 3 questions. First, what has been the most exciting or inspiring moment in your work that you have come across when you do this stuff? And the second question is, what is your ultimate goal in this pursuit? And the last question is, can we have actually the slides for this, because it's wonderfully produced? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so the most inspiring. Okay, so I've been working with a producer for 3 years now, and going to his farm, and every time he cooks me a meal, like I'm 20 people, and I'm like, it's just me coming in every time he cooks it. And one day he was like, so can I ask you a question? And I was like, okay. How old are you? And I was like, you don't ask that question. Why are you asking that? He was like, because you look 15, but you sound like you're 40. And my response was like, well, yeah, I'm between 15 and 40. So I thought that was really nice, and it got to that point where our relationship was both professional in a sense that I'd been to that farm so many times, and yet he wanted to know more about me with caution. I think that was one of my most memorable memories so far. Then the second one, what is my purpose in doing this? I grew up in a country that has a lot of richness and a lot of really good people, really hardworking people. And it's not always rewarded that way, and it's not always the way something didn't sit right for me when I saw. So maybe I should tell you what I did before. I worked in a commodities hedge fund before, trading a lot of coffee, and it didn't seem right, and it didn't sit well with me what people were buying and how they were doing things. So I thought, well, if I'm gonna quit, but then I need to do something about it. And I would hear my dad going, oh, the coffee prices are amazing, and then my boss being, you have to buy 100 more contracts, and I'd be like, this is not sustainable. So really getting into the sustainability of this, and to make sure that we have coffee in the next generations to come. Because as I said in my closing statement, I think the opportunity cost, and for those of you who don't know what it means, the opportunity cost is the cost that you have by doing something instead of doing something else. It's higher than ever before, because for many young people, Guatemala has become a very exciting place, and everyone's moving to the city, or not to mention to the States, to pursue more and better careers. So we need to make sure that the people that grow the coffee know what it means, and how much people value it, and how much they are needed. And I think that's what my message is when I go there, when I spend time at home. And then my third question, yes, your third question, I am going to post the slides, or you can email me. I left a little card at everyone's desk. If you don't have one, you can email me and I can send you the presentation.
There'll be another Q&A at the end, so if you do have more questions, let's do that. But for now, we're keeping it in the family, and Nadine's sister has been brewing up some of Nadine's coffees outside. So if you do fancy a coffee, have one by all means. And just a quick break. We'll come back in, let's say 7:15. Nice and relaxed, and we'll hear part 2 of what sounds like a fascinating evening.
Thank you.
Do I leave this with you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Can I get it when you finish?
It's gonna be online.
Oh, Jesus.
And do you want me to just include the slides on the website? They can people
Yeah,
can download
perfect. Perfect. Hey, mwah. Thank you so much.